Hello, and welcome to Pathways to Healing, the Perfect Step podcast. We are your hosts, Cody Norman
and Logan Fry, paralysis recovery specialist at the Perfect Step, also known as TPS.
We are not doctors and are not prescribing anything, as this podcast is for informational purposes and should not be considered legal advice.
We are, however, sharing knowledge and experience that we have gained from working for years with clients in the paralysis community.
The guests on this podcast will include either experts in their respective fields or individuals sharing their unique experiences with paralysis.
Suggestions and advice that we share may affect each person differently, as not one injury or diagnosis is the exact same.
We are hopeful that the outreach of this podcast will allow us to give help and guidance for individuals suffering from paralysis.
We understand that this spread of knowledge is important and takes an entire community coming together.
Because of this, we would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors who have made this possible. Welcome back to Pathways to Healing. Tonight we have on Miss Ashley Hutton. Ashley, hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Ashley, thanks for being on the podcast. Good to see you again.
Nice to see you as well.
Yeah, we're going to have a few questions for you today, and just wanted to give a little brief intro of you, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So from what we've got from you as far as information goes, you've been a client at TPS for quite a while. You got injured in a car accident at 5 years old. You started at UCLA, then went to ASU, and then you have a master's and you've been a teacher. So just a little brief intro, and then maybe you can dive into a few more of those little things and kind of dive a little bit deeper into what we can learn about you today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, starting from like 5, or what do you want to be talking?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Where do you feel like your story starts?
Obviously it starts August 6th, 1990. But besides that, I was in a car accident when I was 5 when I was living in Buffalo, New York. And no fault to any of the drivers, just medical malpractice. They didn't check my spinal cord for swelling. And the doctors basically didn't follow proper procedures. And they told my parents that I was paralyzed. And then I kind of adapted from there. It happened really quickly. Back then I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. There weren't really many regulations for car seats. And not obviously, but I was pretty tiny for a 5-year-old. So I wasn't really meeting safety requirements of today. And then, I grew up in a small little community in Buffalo, or outside of Buffalo. Had a great, great upbringing there. I loved where I grew up. And then, as a typical teenager does, they move it or want to get as far away from their home as possible, especially when they grow up in a small town. I guess when you live in a great area, you don't really want that. But I went to UCLA and realized really quickly that every place isn't accessible and every place isn't wheelchair friendly. And then I transferred to ASU, where it was the flattest campus that you could possibly attend. So I stayed there for a bit and eventually met my husband, married, and lived all over since.
Now a mom?
Oh, and of course, yes, now a mom. That's why we're here. Well, one of the big reasons that we're talking today. Yes, I am a mom.
Absolutely. How was the accessibility going through elementary school and junior high and high school where you're going at? How was all of the accessibility there, and how did that make life easier or harder for you?
So my elementary school, from what I knew at the time, I was probably one of the first individuals in a wheelchair. Obviously, Buffalo is snowy, and they didn't have the nurses station, like the nurse's office, was up like a set of 10 or 12 stairs, and they didn't have any way of getting me up there. There was no elevator, there was no ramp. The only access was outside, like a service ramp. And so originally they proposed that idea to my parents, which that was how I was going to go to the bathroom each day, was go to the nurse's office. And in the middle of winter, it wasn't the best solution. So they had to like get me a stair climber, and they moved my 3rd grade classroom down the stairs so that I wouldn't be up there either. So like a bunch of little things. that sound crazy now. But as a student, I didn't really notice any difference.
Would you say they're accommodating?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they were in my mind. I thought that they were, but I think that my parents had to advocate more than they let on, to prepare them for what it was going to be like, and to prepare and to kind of like walk through everything each year with the new set of teachers. And some years I had an aide, depending on if there were any other kids in my classroom that needed a special assistance. Which in elementary school, they always put me in a classroom where somebody needed extra assistance. So I always kind of paired physical disabilities with individuals with developmental disabilities. So I kind of had that connection that a lot of students, you know, I don't want to say judged me for, but I thought that they were judging me for. But it was just like little things like that that kind of felt off. Um, but now as as like a former teacher, stay-at-home mom now. I didn't quit for other reasons. Um, but yeah, as a stay-at-home mom, and a former teacher, I realized that it was only because of budgeting and funding that they had to do that. But as a kid, it didn't make much sense of why I always had to be in with the students that needed extra assistance. Because for me, it was just I needed a little bit extra time to get here and there. Um, but then transitioning to like middle school and high school, everything was completely accessible. I mean, the custodial staff would make sure I got into the building okay when it was a blizzard. Like even when I had senior privilege, they would make sure that I would get in, that I would leave okay. There was a path to my car every single day, like cleared. I mean, I grew up in such a great town that I didn't ever feel like I was lacking support.
It's amazing what community can provide.
Yeah, yeah, and it helps that I grew up in a small community. I wasn't just a number.
Mhm.
I mean, my graduating class was the biggest they've ever had. It was like 270. And I mean, now it's so much smaller. The community is even smaller now, and that's, I mean, to me, that was massive, but it was nothing to them. Or it was nothing like, it's nothing in comparison to what I've seen now, especially here in Texas and in California as well. Like Jake,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna ask like the schools that you have taught in Texas. What are those classroom sizes like, and what are graduation sizes like? Are they a lot bigger?
Oh my, it's insane. So, here, well, I didn't teach in the town that I currently live in, but in the neighboring district, there are like 40 elementary schools. There's 6 or 7 teachers per grade level, whereas compared to mine, there were three three teachers per grade level max, and there were 3 elementary schools in my district. So just to put in comparison, like the district that I used to teach in was the district's at like 60,000 kids, K through 12. And that's just one city. And my school district was one high school, and I don't know the numbers K through 12, but I know in the high school there were 1,100 students, and that was again the biggest it's ever been. So you're talking a crazy difference in what I was a student at versus what I was a teacher of.
Wow. How do you feel like, yeah, oh, just a little bit of a difference. Yeah. How do you feel like living in that small town that you were raised? There sounds like the population wasn't too like as high as maybe it was in Tucson, Arizona. How was the population of those two similar or different? Because you were at U of A?
I was at in Tempe. It's
Tempe, sorry. Yes, Tempe for ASU. Yeah.
um I'm sorry, repeat the question. I was so focused on making sure that everyone knew I went to Arizona State. So you.
Not U of A. Yeah, exactly. So what was the population? How was it different and how was it similar
Oh god.
from your small town into Tempe now?
I literally went to the biggest school in the nation. So I I mean UCLA, that stepping stone was nice. Um Being exposed to, you know, a diverse population was incredible, and then it even expanded when I went to ASU. But it was so nice because I went from UCLA, which was super hilly, super non-wheelchair friendly. I tried to rush there and join Greek life, and none of the houses were accessible. So like they basically told me that if I wanted to do to join Greek life, they would bring like 2 or 3 girls out from the house each day. And mind you, it was kind of hot during recruitment season. And I'd meet like 2 or 3 girls, and then I would join a house based on just that representation of the house. And then they would essentially take a year by law, like their housing organization would have to make the house accessible. So I would waste like a whole year and a half of not being able to be active in UCLA Greek life. And none of the other houses were accessible. So it's like I wouldn't even be able to visit anybody. So then fast forward to transferring, and I mean, everything was flat. I mean, other than the heat, nothing was like out of reach for me.
Did you
Everything.
like the ASU?
I did. I did. I joined a sorority, um, and it was absolutely amazing. It was funny enough, it was about the size of my graduating class, the amount of women, and which is I've never actually thought about that until this moment. But yeah, it was about 220, 250 women that I absolutely loved. I mean, I still keep in contact with them. They weren't bridesmaids in my weddings by any means, but that's because I didn't have any bridesmaids, so it's fine. But, I loved it. I felt like, it was kind of a community within the 50,000 plus people at ASU. I don't know the number, but I know it was over that.
So you ended up becoming a teacher. Can you talk a little bit about your education experience yourself, going from how education may have been in that small town to then going to UCLA and ASU, and how that transcribed in you to want to become a teacher?
I mean, obviously I loved where I grew up. We're gonna kind of go forward to go back again, but,
Okay.
the teachers that I had in elementary and middle school and high school, um, I kept in contact with them in a way because I also did a long-term sub position in my old middle school. So some of the same teachers were there, and I reconnected with them when I was teaching. Um, so I was able to teach alongside of some of my former teachers, which was just absolutely insane. And then fast forward even more, um, some of those teachers also attended my baby shower. Like it was a very it felt like I always had support from my teachers growing up. So it just kind of felt like a no-brainer to become a teacher, to be that connection with students, and be that voice for them, or be that support system. And I think that I'm kind of a testament of, your education. Obviously, education is so important, um, but it also can be your ticket to independence. Um, I felt like if I was a teacher, I could show that, you know, not that I defied all odds. It's not like there was something that I had to prove to anybody, but that, like, just because I was in a wheelchair didn't mean that I couldn't impact people on my own terms. And not just because of the wheelchair, but also, like, despite the challenges that I've had to go through.
Mm. As a teacher, would you say that the things you learned from your education influenced you more, or watching all the teachers go through how they taught kind of influence your teaching methodology more?
I think good teachers influence me way more. I can't. There were. It's kind of like on the first day of work, you felt like your mind and your education completely went blank. Like nothing you learned in college was going to be put into like fruition. Like nothing was going to happen that you studied for hours for. Like I didn't. And then all of a sudden, I just kind of remembered what my teachers did, and then it just became second nature to be the teacher that I wanted to be. And it wasn't so much about the perfect lesson plan that I spent hours creating. for like it was nothing about that. It was about the connections I was making with my students. And even not even my students, just like people like some of the other students at the school.
That's so
Right.
cool to hear. It's so cool to hear that perspective. Um, as people who obviously had to go through the large education to get where we were at. I mean, not large, but enough to have a good
Yeah.
amount of teachers and be able to understand what made some teachers good in our perspectives and what didn't. It always kind of made me wonder what influenced them to become the way they were. Was it did the bad ones get more stuck in the books and the good ones really tried to focus on how to create relationships with their students in a way that they could better help distribute the knowledge? And so it's so cool to hear that you kind of did do that, and it sounds like you were able to become a successful teacher. You
Yeah.
taught first, third, and sixth grade.
I did. Sixth grade was just the long term substance. So it wasn't really, I mean, I loved it. I actually, those kids are now juniors. Um, but like I mean, it wasn't my calling, but I loved the connections I made with them because I'm still in touch with a few of them actually. They like found me on social media, and now it's not as they're in Buffalo. They'll just kind of reach out when they need something. And it's again funny because some of them still have the same teachers that I had. Um, and then yeah, I taught first and third. Uh, First was challenging. Third was probably my favorite.
Hmm.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
made
Third was
and what made first so challenging?
third was my favorite because they were starting to develop their own personalities. Like they knew the expectations. Um, they started to have their own interests. They started to just kind of become their own people that yes, their parents were still a big part of their lives, but it wasn't like a mom said I have to do this or a dad said I have to do this or whoever's their guardian is. And so it would be like you can just connect with them more on who they wanted to be and what direction they were going in. And get that buy-in because of who they were kind of surrounding themselves with or what they were interested in.
So crazy that change can like happen in just 2 years too.
Oh, it's always I always whenever I interviewed for a job, not that it was all that often, I think it was 2 interviews after my 3rd grade position. When I moved different times, they always asked me what my favorite grade level was, and I said 3rd grade after the holiday break. Because it was so true. They come back and they're like kind of 4th graders, but they still want to have a good relationship with the teacher where they're not so much attitude, but it's this perfect medium. So
The Be Perfect Foundation is not just a name, it's a promise. A promise to individuals living with paralysis that they are not alone in their journey. Founded by Hal Hargrave Jr. in 2007, after his own life-altering accident, we are a nonprofit 501c3 organization dedicated to providing direct financial and emotional aid. Inspired by a quote from the movie Friday Night Lights, we believe that being perfect is about doing everything you can, especially for yourself, your family, and your friends. With nearly $10 million raised and a 100% volunteer staff, your support goes directly to those in need. We assist with medical supplies, wheelchairs, home adaptations, and exercise-based therapy programs. Our board of directors receives no salary, ensuring that almost every dollar donated makes a real impact. Visit BePerfectFoundation.org to donate or learn how you can get involved. The Be Perfect Foundation. Changing perceptions daily.
All right, Ashley, how do you feel like the medical care, or let's say even the care within the school system, when you're going to school versus when you're teaching school, how are those two things different and how are they similar for people with disabilities?
So I touched on being paired with people with developmental disabilities growing up.
Right.
I think now there's a lot more awareness as far as teachers have for different disabilities. I think teachers are more aware because it's more. I don't want to say the numbers are increasing. I don't know that statistically. I don't know. Maybe you guys do, but I just think that there's awareness. Teachers, good teachers, I'll put this way, good teachers have more of an awareness of what's going on in the world, and the disabilities are a part of that. Make sure that we receive the same education, that we are able to participate in all the activities, that we're feeling included. Um, I think good teachers do that, and I think good teachers have always done that. However, I don't think people are always fortunate for that, especially when schools don't have the resources that they need to get to those spaces. Um, but I think on an even more important side, um, is that the students, like now I'm kind of talking about me as a teacher. I feel like the students aren't aware of what disability looks like or can be like. I feel like it shouldn't have been my job to teach them all about disabilities. Um, I think that my job is to be their teacher, yes, and to open the door to have those conversations if they want to. Um, but I think a lot of the times my parents, the parents of my students, would kind of make it seem like, oh, they're so lucky to learn from you because you're in a wheelchair. And in my head, like, yeah, like I'm honored that I had that space to share with them. But I think that parents should be having those conversations of what differences and what acceptance looks like, and I don't think that's being had enough, especially when I taught in private schools. It was as if like I'm the diversity, which I am a very privileged person. I can acknowledge my privilege. I can see it. Um, I experienced it firsthand with the community that I grew up in. Like yes, I'm in a wheelchair, and yes, I had trials, and life wasn't easy, but it was pretty easy at the same time because I had a community. Um, and I just feel like the students aren't aware of it. And um, we would have like not disability day, it would be like ability day, and so they would be, and obviously you want to make it fun for students, but like kids would be trying out wheelchairs and they'd be like, "Oh, this is so fun. Oh, I love it." Then and it would be and in my head, they kind of missed the mark on what that was supposed to be like because you had to sit back. I was a part of it for a few years. I had to sit back and kind of be like, "Okay, did you have to," and I would have to say certain scenarios to them because I was like, of course you got to ride in a wheelchair and that was fun. Like that is fun. It's everybody wants to do a wheelie in a wheelchair, but when you put when you not that you want to put kids into tough situations, but real situations that people have to deal with to just kind of develop a sort of empathetic view, like they didn't have that. And so like I felt like that was kind of an added role that I kind of took on even though I didn't have to. Um but I wanted to because I felt like it would be an injustice if I to like the rest of the people who really have struggled with their disability if I didn't show like it's not like getting a cool wheelchair is fun. Like there's so many added stressors to it financially too that they don't even realize. Like I did a whole cost breakdown of something for my like a math lesson on it of what it would be like if I need a new seat cushion, and they had no idea of how much it cost. And so talking about those things hopefully open their eyes, but I think there's such a I don't want to say there's a lack of awareness because they are just kids, but I feel like parents need to kind of approach it in a way of exposure to different types of people.
Yeah.
Just like the world, you expose them to everything else, not everything, but in due time, they will experience different things. And I think it's really important. So,
It's a good thing to be exposed to and to be educated upon.
I do think they were right about one thing. I do think they were lucky to have you as a teacher because I don't think
Yeah.
all kids get that lesson, and I think it could be so valuable.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how, not from the education perspective, but how medical care may have developed in your years?
I'm a product of doctors not following proper procedures. So I think, and I hope, I know that they're hopefully retired by now, knowing a doctor's salary, let's be real. So I don't think that they're practicing anymore. But I think that spinal cord injuries are thankfully there's so much more research and there's so much more awareness of it in the medical field. Um, Obviously, we have a lot of room for growth. Um, but as far as medical care, I've never really experienced poor medical care afterwards. So I feel very fortunate with that. There was one time where I can tell you, and I hope that anybody would do this, but I wasn't listened to from a doctor's perspective. He told me I have a scar on my back from an open bed sore wound when they basically left me on my back afterwards because they didn't know what to essentially do with my injury once I had a spinal cord injury. So I had an open sore wound that healed, and he had told me that I had gotten surgery on my back like years later. He's like, "Yeah, you definitely had surgery." And I basically told him like 2 or 3 times, I said, "I didn't." And he didn't listen. And I gently smacked his hand away from me. And I said, "If you don't want to listen to me, then you won't be my doctor." Um, and ever since then, it's kind of felt empowering to know that, like, I know my body more than a doctor would, and I know how to advocate for myself. And I think it's so important to have learned that. Um, and I don't know, kind of feels cool knowing. And I think there was a turning point, or that was a turning point that I realized that nobody gets to tell me more about my body than I already know.
How old?
Like, I live in it.
Mhm.
Oh, probably 14, 13, 14.
That's awesome.
And
That's
obviously,
pretty-
yeah, obviously my mom was in the room with me, and she was like had no idea what to do. And I was like, "Well, what do you? You're not gonna put your hands on me if you don't believe me. This just as simple as that." So,
And like you said, it's you know
yeah,
your body the most. You know your body better than anybody else does. So, and the fact that you went through the experience, you're like, Doc, this is an experience that I went through, and I know what happened. So we
right.
need
Like,
people
no
to.
one, yeah. And I think people are so scared to do that because
Mm.
they don't have medical background, but it's like you have to trust your intuition at some point. Like, if somebody's not listening to you when it comes to your medical care, like, there's other doctors. There's other people that are going to fight for you and be on your team. So,
Big fan of getting second opinions as well. If
oh yeah.
right, or a third. Yeah.
Or fourth.
Yeah.
Are you in the retail, restaurant, hospitality, or petroleum industry? Looking for a trusted partner with your multi-site remodel, refresh, or tech integration needs? Look no further. Apex Imaging Services is your complete solution provider. With over 7 decades of experience, we're experts in everything from general contracting to cutting-edge tech solutions. Visit apeximagingservices.com to learn how we can transform your business, increase efficiency, and elevate your brand. Apex Imaging Services. Your vision, our expertise.
So you finished school at Arizona State University. Did you move directly back to California after that?
I took a little gap year in between my undergrad and my master's. And then I went back for my master's at ASU, graduated with that. And during my master's program, I met Jake, my now husband, and we actually moved to Texas for a little bit right away. We didn't want to live in California, didn't want to live in Arizona. So we lived in Texas. We've lived all over, as I'm sure we'll discuss in the next couple minutes or however long we're together, but lived all over. And yeah, so we decided Texas and then got married in Buffalo and then moved to California.
What are some like separating factors? Because you've moved all over. You've been New York, like you said, Arizona with Jake as well. What were some like key things that kept you in Texas?
Or that made you want to go back?
Having a child. I think Texas has its flaws, just like any state. But I knew that there was good education systems here. I knew that it was family friendly. I know that there's a big communities here. Like our community that we found has a lagoon. It's like this beautiful beach setup that they have. There's pools, there's walking trails, um, like there's like food trucks. They have events for all the different holidays. It's just a really tight knit community. Like the PGA headquarters is about 5 minutes away. Like and there's like good restaurants, good shops over there. And they're building so many new parks and places to hang out at. And it's rapidly growing. And I mean, my neighbors are already some of our best friends. I mean, it just was an easy kind of not easy because we love California, but it just wasn't realistic. I could never feel comfortable to not work and be a mom. And New York, especially Buffalo, we got because Hayden was born there. My daughter didn't really say that, but my daughter was born in Buffalo, and when she was like 4 or 5 months old, our garage door was frozen shut for 3 days straight. Didn't feel safe to in such a safe community. The weather played the factor, and which is really sad because we loved everything else about it. But for my independence, it wasn't conducive to that. So Texas it was, and Arizona's too dang hot. It was so hot.
Yeah.
I know Texas gets hot, but it feels like there's no break for 6 months of the year.
It gets hot here too. 106 today, I think. Yeah.
It's been very hot here lately. Was weather one of the factors that played in wanting to leave California as well?
Not so much. I mean, we lived probably like 40 minutes from TPS. So we were like more like we were Cypress, like towards Long Beach area. So it wasn't Cypress was warmer, but Long Beach wasn't too bad. No, I loved California in the sense of the weather but I think in some regards, I don't know if there were safe places for me to like when I had a family, like parking would be an issue to get a vehicle out. Like there was always a concern of mine if I was going out in public, like if there was going to be enough parking. And now I have to drive a minivan, little mom vehicle. I'm not saying soccer mom because I don't know what she's going to be into yet. Uh, and yeah, I don't know if it's going to be a good I didn't know if it was going to be safe. I didn't know if you were going to have an unhoused person next to you coming up to your vehicle when it takes me a little bit longer to come in. And thinking of kids, that's a reality that I thought about,
Yeah. What are
especially in the beach towns.
Yeah.
Definitely a reality.
So you spoke about Hayden. That's your daughter. How old is Hayden? No.
He is 13 months.
13 months.
I never thought I'd be the person that was talking about birth in like months versus years, but here we are.
That's awesome. What are some fun activities that you and Hayden do out there, or you, Hayden, and Jake?
So we're coming out. Speaking of weather, we're coming out of our hot season, so we are most looking forward to just going back on our daily walks at night. We love that. I love having play dates with some of my old coworkers and their kids. Um, she she's a monster right now. She just wants to eat, so we love going out to eat. She like flirts with every single waiter, like is waving to them, blowing them kisses. It's the cutest thing in the entire world, and she behaves so well at restaurants, so we love taking her out to eat. Um, yeah, she's a hot mess, and it's the best. It's the best stage right now. I didn't think it would be, but it's great. It's great.
It's incredible to hear. I'm excited to eventually get there, but hopefully not too soon. I don't want to rush anything.
No, it goes by real fast.
It already has. You're obviously a mom now, so can you talk a little bit about your pregnancy experience?
Which one?
Uh,
I'm 16 weeks pregnant.
what?
Wow.
Are you really?
Right.
Congratulations.
How
Oh,
awesome. Well, I had no idea.
Congratulations.
That's so cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Yep. 2 under 2. So here we go.
Okay, yeah, no.
That is amazing.
That's so
Do you need to change some questions now? Like, what are you thinking? No.
Just flabbergasted.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your first one?
Yeah. No. Cool. So, pregnancy went really well with Hayden. I was terrified. I didn't know if my body was going to be able to handle it. But I think that was also because it was something so completely unknown. And I had worked so hard to getting my body into a space that I was confident in and comfortable in. And then you're like, let's just throw it all completely and let's have something like a human grow inside of you and just move all of your organs to a different location. And like, let's just throw all of the things you learned about your bladder control out the window. So yeah, it was more of a mental struggle for me. First trimester was rough. Like I did have morning sickness.
All day long.
It lasted. Yeah, it lasted all day. It was, and because of my injury level, like getting rid of that, as the nicest way I can put it, was an all day event. Like I couldn't have the core strength to puke. But other than that, like I knew I was going to have a C-section. My doctor and I had talked about it, or our OB kind of talked about it.
The possibility of doing it natural, and was that just a decision because it was probably the safest thing?
I kind of was of the belief that that I didn't really have anything to prove. I thought, if I'm making it through this pregnancy, I don't want to feel like I have to put myself in that corner, and if it doesn't work, that I failed. Um, I wanted to set myself up to succeed, and maybe that's a little, I don't know. I don't know if that's selfish or if that's just like thinking ahead. And I didn't want to put her health at risk in case there were complications. Um, it was kind of one of those unknowns, and my OB, he said he has 2 children with special needs, 2 children without, but I reached out to him to see if he was taking patients because I actually went to high school with all 4 of his kids. So like again, small.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this
Just
is
give
like
context.
small town. Yeah. I just knew of him. He's a very well respected doctor. And he he literally was like, okay, so you know, if you're uncomfortable, I have an indoor pool and you can come use it for like aquatic therapy if you need to. If you get too big and your current wheelchair doesn't fit, like you can come, like I have extra wheelchairs that are probably bigger for you. But anyways, back to birth. He just kind of told me, he's like, I'm here to support you if you want to go either route, but he obviously completely understood um why I wanted to do a C-section. So
I think all just
Yeah.
like you said, it's just such an unknown that at that point you don't have anything to prove. You went through 36. How many weeks was the scheduled C-section?
38.
Yes, you went through 38 weeks of literally growing another human inside of you. So you proved everything you needed to in my eyes.
Yeah.
As somebody who just very recently got to watch that whole experience, you guys are superheroes, so that you don't have anything else to prove.
Now you get to do it all over again, too.
Yeah, now you get to do it all over again.
And my water that morning that anyways, that so Hayden was already,
That's what we called fate.
yeah, she already said, she's like, I'm making my own rules. And here she is, as stubborn as can be. So it feels right. It feels right that my water broke that day.
Well, now that you've had one baby, you're going to have a second one. What are some maybe suggestions and advice that you would give to moms
Man, I think it kind of goes back to like medical care. I think trust your gut. I think there's so many things we don't know, but we have a feeling of what feels right and what feels wrong. Um, there were days and nights that I would have like 30 tabs open on my phone and being like, is this normal? Is this normal? Is this normal? And it's okay. Like it's okay to not know everything, but like trusting your gut. And I personally feel like a good parent will have boundaries. And a good parent will have those things that there's like, yes, you need help, but you also need to like set those boundaries for yourself, for your friends, for your family to like find that space for you to find yourself again in this new role. Um and if you're a person with a disability plus being a parent, I mean, I think it's not our job to educate others. It's not our job or responsibility to take that pressure on. So don't feel like you have to. Like I think for me it really took a long time for like if people want to be inspired by my journey, like I'm so appreciative of that and I love that. But that's not an added responsibility in my life. Like being a mom is my first priority and being a wife as well, and those are way more important than everything else. I don't know how to say that in a nice way, but other than protecting my space. And that's a really weird thing to do after leaving teaching when you just give, give, give. And now I have to like learn to like reel that back in and just take what I have and then keep what I have to give to the people that are closest to me.
Fantastic. Still in a selfless manner. Still, very selfless. And I couldn't imagine being in that position of being a mom. I never will be able to. And like Cody said, you guys are superheroes. And
Thank you.
I truly mean that.
Are you or a loved one living with paralysis and searching for a path to recovery and hope? Look no further than The Perfect Step. Our unique exercise-based recovery programs have helped clients with conditions like spinal cord injury, stroke, Parkinson's, and more. With our approach, many clients experience improved function, reduced medication, and even freedom from wheelchairs. But we're not just a program. We're a community of support. You'll meet peers who understand your journey, along with specialists dedicated to your recovery. Visit us today at theperfectstep.com. The Perfect Step, where recovery begins.
How has this pregnancy been similar, different than the other pregnancy? You obviously I'm guessing you have a different OB now that you're in Texas?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We
I don't know if you
have different OB.
telecare.
Different. I would say I'm more tired this round, but I think it's because I have a baby and another baby coming. Yeah, I mean, did we want this baby? Yes. Was it planned? Yes. But 2 under 2, it's intimidating. It's very intimidating. But it's been super exciting. I mean, it feels wild. Like we haven't even announced it on social media. So like you heard it here first, as if I'm like an influencer or anything, but I don't know.
Cool. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
feel special.
Yeah. Do you guys know the gender?
We do. It's another girl. Yeah.
Congrats.
I knew it was gonna have girls. That's one of those things that I feel like I think I was trying to convince myself that it was a boy, but I just
You knew.
yeah, Jake and I were both like, this feels right. Like we weren't even shocked when we found out. We're like, okay. Yeah.
That's
Are
awesome.
there a lot of girls on both your guys' sides?
Jake has a really small family, so like statistically it's really hard to tell from his family. And then my mom, my side, yes. So, just I wouldn't have known what to do if I had a boy. It'd be very confusing to me. Yeah. And luckily I didn't go gender neutral, but I like neutrals for myself. So that's kind of what I bought for Hayden and what I kind of asked for. So a lot of things kind of worked for her that will work for baby too. Baby girl. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I'm still like in shock. I'm so excited for
I
you.
know.
That's
Throwing you off.
incredible. It really is. So you have one baby. You've kind of
Yeah.
made it through definitely the infant stage, but you're, getting into a lot of different
Yeah.
developmental areas. What tips and tricks would you give to a new mom?
Find your community. I think that's a big one. I think going to not mommy and me classes, I guess, but I mean, include your partner if you can as much as possible. I think lighten up on the pressure that you give yourself. Uh, have that team and have those conversations of what you need with your partner. Um, gosh, there's just so many. It's all about teamwork. Essentially, is what it comes down to. Like any person that you can truly feel like you can rely on, that's great. It doesn't have to be a large team, but it can be just finding those teammates.
It's a lifetime thing, right? So you want to find a lifetime partner that you can do everything with together, and especially having a baby. You know exactly what that feels like right now.
I do, and I kind of do. I mean, I do, but it still sometimes feels like you don't. You feel like you don't really know what's going on. You don't know what you're doing, but your instincts kind of take over, and everything tends to work itself out for the most part. And you just kind of just feels like you're along for the ride sometimes. I don't know if you get that feeling as a mom, but that's kind of been my experience as a dad. I definitely have a great wife who she's made this process, I won't say very easy, but easy on me. And so, like I said, nothing but respect for you moms. It's crazy.
So what do you feel like has been your greatest educational resource, whether you're a reader or you watch or listen to podcasts like Pathways to Healing, or you go on YouTube and Safari? What are some things that you've been educating yourself about? What are some, I guess, ways you've been doing that?
So I think as a mom, like in that role, I have found that uh, social media has helped me the most in that regard, and my closest friends who were going through it kind of at the same time or like pretty close in schedule, because it's wild how quickly you forget the stages because there's so many of them. Um, as a person in a wheelchair, um, health looks. I mean, I feel like over the course of my life, I've kind of learned what different techniques and different exercises work best for my body at different stages. Um, and I think and so I think through experience, I've learned that. Now I think it's going to be a refresher once I'm done having children of kind of getting to know that new body because I feel like that's going to be a journey in of itself. I don't think I'm.
Is I mean appropriate. I don't know if that's the word either. But are you guys done after this one, or do you guys want more?
I don't know. I mean, if if we talked about it, like if we're going to have a third, it'd be when Hayden's in kindergarten.
Okay.
Like she needs to be in school before we talk about having three. No, he doesn't care.
He doesn't care. That's good. Yeah. I mean, after having the first girl, it's like I'll have as many of these as I can.
Yeah. Like I mean, and I think Jake does such a good role with being a girl dad. I think he's gonna be that perfect example of what it means to be comfortable with going outside of your comfort zone of what a girl dad looks like. And I love that for my family and I love that for our generation. I think that's a huge, huge shift from the dads that not that our dads were bad or that my dad was very active as much as he could be, but I think there's like a huge shift in just being the role model of like what each aspect of what a dad could be in a girl's life. So I don't care if we have well, I don't want a million more girls. But if we have one child after this, great. But 3 is definitely the max.
You
Definitely.
don't have an even number. Got to go for 4 at that point.
What am I going to drive? What am I going to drive at that point? I need my room for my chair plus a stroller Like, you want me to drive a semi? Like, what is this?
Astrovan.
Yeah, right.
That's awesome.
Who's paying for that? Then I definitely need a job.
Jake.
I would-
So around TPS lately, we've been focusing on how people have been reinventing their life. So what is one way that you have seen someone reinvent or you have reinvented your own life?
I mean, I think for me, and I guess it's easiest to respond to something that I know best, which is myself. I feel like I'm reinventing myself every day. Everything is new every single day. Like, even like simple tasks of how I pick Hayden up from the floor, the way that she grips me, the way that I'm able to make sure she's safe, especially with a changing body again. It's it's always a challenge to make sure that, you know, you're doing your best also while protecting your body and protecting, your child. So I think for me, it's every new challenge. And I think that's kind of a testament to the community as a whole with and without being parents. I feel like we're adapting to a world that necessarily wasn't built for us. And so I think it's a testament to just how much strength and perseverance that we all have in us. And I would hope that more people recognize that and realize that within themselves. But it's just something that should be brought to their attention, and not in the sympathetic, like, oh, you're doing great way. It's more so like, you're killing it. Like, this should be a positive aspect of who you are, because it doesn't have to be such a negative.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're very busy every single day, obviously being a mom and just doing all the other things. What could you walk us through like a day in your life?
Yes. So Hayden loves waking up early. She's an early riser. So she wakes up at around like 6:15, 6:30 right now. Which doesn't seem that early when I say it out loud, but
No,
it it comes really quickly.
is she going to?
And so she goes to bed at like 7:15,
Oh,
7:30.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And then she sleeps through she ends up, actually, we start bedtime at around like 7:15, and then she's asleep by like 7:45.
That's great.
And so usually she gets a good amount of sleep. But we do things on like she'll wake up, and then like 3.5 to 4 hours later she'll go down for a nap for an hour and a half, and then another 3.5 hours, and then probably like an hour nap. And in between those, I mean, it's couple diaper changes. It's a ton of feeding right now. She eats so much. It's a lot of playtime. And then that's especially like the first wake window is a lot of playtime, a lot of getting energy out. And usually that second wake window after her first nap, we go for like errands or like a play date or something to get out of the house. And then that last one is like after her second nap. Um, she's some she sometimes isn't like fully like she's awake, but she just doesn't want to be as active.
Mhm.
So it's just, keeping her happy with some snacks and more playtime. We're And if we have plans, like, she'll, like I said, she loves going out to eat, love going to restaurants, love, going over to friends. She does a lot better when she's entertained by others other than just Jake and I. So the more social we can be, the better. It's just like finding that happy medium for our limitations, for our like exhaustive level. Yeah. But I mean, I'm usually right now, especially being pregnant, I am in bed pretty much as soon as I can. As soon as I get her in bed, I'm gonna get horizontal. I'm laying down.
You deserve it.
Awesome.
And you break down your process of going on errand runs and how you learned how to do that with a baby?
Yes, of course. I'm pretty much just about ready to change that because Hayden is small. So we've been able to, she's chunky, but she's small. She's got a big belly. So we've been able to use the Duna up until now to go to and from places. So it's kind of at my height, which is really nice. So I've been able to push that in public. But so I just have to find a new stroller that's easy for me to break down and that's lightweight. But anyways, the day-to-day, like getting into the vehicle, and like I prep her, I get all of her diaper bag ready, which is like snacks, ton of like activities just to keep her busy. But normally she's pretty good, like I said, with being social. So if we're out in public, she's pretty much entertained. And to get her in the vehicle, I have a Brawnability adapted vehicle. So like the minivan kind of, I press the button, the ramp lowers down, I push her up the ramp, and I transfer her into a car seat. So I can pull my chair and the stroller right up and in. And then I have a car seat that is like rotates 360 degrees. So I just kind of flip it rear facing, and then I get into the driver's seat and off we go. So it's a little bit more work, but the way that I really like the fact that I'm able to take her out of the elements. If there's rain, if it's so hot, like I can get her safely in the vehicle without worrying about all those things. And I can take my time, especially and not that I'm going anywhere that's unsafe. I live in suburbia right now. Like there's nothing really going on. But just knowing that I won't have random people approaching me and probably being nice, but invading my space, asking if I need help. Mm-hmm. Like it's very weird how often people try to be nice and try to like push Hayden as if that's helping me, but instead it's kind of creepy. But that's I'm sure people can relate to being pushed by a stranger like out of nowhere. It's very common. Right. But take it to another level with the child. It's very strange.
How long does the whole process take for you then? So like open the ramp, get Hayden in and yourself, get in the driver's seat, what, a few minutes, if that?
3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah. That's awesome. So it's quick and effective. That's awesome.
Yeah. The thing that I struggle with is and Jake can testify this. Jake will say I don't take anything out of my van, or it's hard for me to like bring stuff to my van because it's just, I guess I was never good at cleaning my vehicle. But now I feel like I have an excuse of why I'm not good at cleaning my vehicle.
Okay. Can you give us one tip that you would give to somebody who is just entering the paralysis community and somebody who may have already been in the paralysis community but is in that community and now becoming a parent?
I mean, I think for a while I thought because nobody's story was exactly my own, I held this like standoffish type attitude towards relating to anybody. And it took a lot of self-reflection to realize that just because nobody's story is exactly as yours, exactly when your process happened, they didn't have the same life experiences before, during, after, your recovery was different, that it felt even lonelier. But there's something so powerful and connecting to just talking to people, just talking and they don't even have to relate in a disability way. They don't have to relate at all. But finding someone that's going to listen and be not an annoyingly positive person, but a positive light in that life, I think is really important. To find your safe people. Like Jake had no idea what the disability community was really like. He had no idea what like the paralysis community was about. But I mean, one of our first dates, he carried me up a flight of steps because that's where the bathroom was located, and cleared it out and waited in the restroom for me to go to the bathroom when there was no other women around. Like simple things like that I know that's an act, and not an act as in like fake, but like an act of service that seems so simple, but people who make you feel safe will do those things and will prove those things to you. And just to continue to search for those people is so important.
You knew right then.
It's very significant right there. It's awesome.
I always said if I had to give a speech at my wedding that I was going to say that, but I didn't have to. So here it is, saved for TPS, the Pathways to Healing podcast.
Perfect. And you're reaching so many people, and whether you're trying to or not, you are definitely a positive influence or light in so many people. And just sharing your story and sharing all the education that you've had and the resources that you've used and your experiences that you've had has just been fantastic to hear about. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for coming on, Ashley.
Of course, of course. Have a good one.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Pathways to Healing, the Perfect Step podcast. We hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did.
If you found today's episode to be valuable, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, share, and feel free to leave a review by clicking the link in the description below.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or topics you'd like for us to cover in upcoming episodes, you can go to our website under the tab Pathways to Healing and fill out the form.
We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another engaging conversation giving insight into the paralysis community.
Until then, keep inspiring, stay resilient, and roll on.
These are your hosts, Cody Norman
and Logan Fry,
signing off.